Hey, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Project Review Committee for April 19th, 2023. We're gonna go ahead and start Project Review Committee at 1:36 p.m. I'm gonna go ahead and do roll call here for city staff. We're joined by myself, Oscar Cepeda, the Associate Planner within the Community Development Department. We're also joined by Jason Reidenauer, our Assistant City Manager, also the Community Development Director. We're joined by Jeff O'Neill, our City Planner. We're also joined by Rocio Mejia, our Assistant Planner. And we're also joined by Maya Chahiyari, our planning technician. We're also joined by Clayton Dignam, our fire marshal. We're also joined by Javier Sanchez, our engineering and project management director. And Rick here with our building division. That is all from staff. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open oral communications. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on any matter pertaining to project review. With that, seeing there are no other members here or on the internet, we're going to go ahead and close oral communications. So for today's agenda, we have one item, which is Project Review Committee 2023-013 for the Southern California Edison Porterville Yard expansion. The applicant is proposing the expansion of the existing yard site located on 2701 West Edison Court. Let me go ahead and share my screen here for the project area. Again, what's being proposed is an expansion of the yard site. The property is located in the industrial zone, airport industrial, and has a general plan use of industrial general. First off, from the planning standpoint, of course, we're going to require that the development complies with our with the Porterville Municipal Code Chapter 21, which is our Porterville Development Ordinance, making sure that the proposed future structures complies with the minimum setbacks required within the zone district. We do see outdoor storage here, parking, landscaping, of course, landscaping complying with Chapter 303 of our Porterville Development Ordinance, outdoor storage, making sure it complies with Section 300.03. Also with that the storage is not to be permitted in the street-facing yards, which is the first 20 feet of the front yard setback. No storage is allowed within that area. It's permitted in the interior side and your rear yard side of or outside of the rear yards within this zone district. Of course, outdoor storage areas shall be paved, again outlined in Section 300.09. Parking areas complying with our Chapter 304. Any lighting, of course, complying with our requirements here in Section 300.07. Any trash enclosures proposed complying with Section 300.13 of our Porterville Development Ordinance. Pretty much standard here. You do have a floor area ratio of 60%. Since you are proposing some structures here, making sure that the structures do not exceed our height limitation of 35 feet. And that's pretty much our standard comments based off this preliminary review of layout of your project site. Any questions for planning at this time?
We would need to know about use for the facilities that are shown on the plan. The proposed plan includes an administration building,
okay,
which is 2-story, 40,000 plus or minus 40,000 square feet is shown here. Recognizing there's a height limit, so within 2 stories under 35 feet was the thought.
Correct.
Of this.
Correct.
And associated parking, we're looking at approximately 80 staff.
Mhm.
We haven't done accurate parking numbers, but we've approximated it with what we're showing in this scheme. And then associated with that, we have some structures to shade the parking with PV solar panels. The other structure is a mix of uses. We're calling it a prefab storage restroom area.
Yeah.
It's got a small office area, some restrooms for the crews principally, and some storage and prefab areas, bringing in some of the more sensitive externally stored items into internal storage. And then there's a forklift charging canopy. Then at the far east of the site, there's a garage pulled out, which is a future notion to put on this site. So we just wondered what the use status would be for each of those buildings with those uses.
As far as those uses, yeah, it would be an extension of what's there. Sounds like you'll be having office uses. We'll consider those office uses of those structures. Of course, it's already an established yard. It's just expanding on that. We would allow an office as part of your yard.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So as far as those uses being proposed, they are permitted within that zone district.
Including the garage. So
Yes.
So we're looking at like a service center type arrangement here, and that's within the
Correct.
use. So it's a permitted use.
Yes.
Thank you. But if I could just follow up with
Sure.
the other structures that are called out here, we have several trash areas called out associated with each of the facilities.
Correct.
They would work toward, they would be designed under the ordinance requirement. There's a generator, which I just assumed would be a diesel generator, wrong?
More than likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Backup power for the building.
Yeah. Approximately located in this scheme, just between the 2 main buildings. And then hazmat canopy for storage of hazmat material beneath is shown at the mid portion of the site and set back from the property line approximately 50 feet. Those are the other sort of utility structures we called out. And the other item is a fuel island, where we've got above grade storage tanks, diesel and leaded. We've called out 6,000 each, 6,000 gallons each. Yeah, again, that would have a canopy over, and it has pumps and for the servicing of the fleet vehicle. Are there any concerns with any of those items regarding planning usage?
No, again, it's a service that you'll be providing. It's not gonna be a service that's gonna be open to the public, would be my understanding. No, good,
Good.
on planning side.
So then, I think we'd also just like to describe that the entrance to the site would be expanded to a main entrance as you're sort of circling the rest of that. That would be a manned security. There'd be a hut there, and that would be the main security entrance to the site. But there would also be 3 other driveways at the front end of the court. The first driveway, we looked at the standards. It looked like 35 feet setback from the junction would be the requirement. That was a key one that we needed to know because it kind of sets out these areas for us. If we could get clarification on that, that would be very useful.
Javier, can you, outline that requirement as far as the minimum, distance from that to, provide or propose a, drive approach?
Yeah, that's typically it's 20 feet on a local road. So that looks close. You know, without the dimensions, just visually it looks too close. I may have to shift a little bit.
Not a super accurate drawing, but we're approximately 35 feet, from that, to the west street.
From the corner of the curb ramp.
So you're measuring from, sorry, I'm not a civil engineer. So you measure from the junction where the curve goes into a straight. Is that that point?
Correct. Roughly around right there.
Well, I think we might be 5 feet or something short of the 20 feet that you're looking for.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we can accommodate that adjustment.
Is there a minimum between, drive approaches, Javier?
Yes, it's somewhat of an odd measurement. It's like 22 feet between driveways.
Would be good on that. And then if we can just stay on the sort of boundary of the site, we are showing on the frontage of Edison Court an extension of the masonry structure that we've got there existing to the West Street facade. And then thereafter, we're looking at fences that would be screened for the remainder of the site perimeter. Is that in order, or are there any requirements for the masonry to be anywhere else on the site?
As far as the height limitations, within the front yard setback, we do have height limitations, for, solid walls not to exceed 3.5 feet. Of course, after that, setback, you can go up to, 6 feet, 7 feet, or maybe even up to 8 feet with the zoning administrator approval.
Okay. Understood.
I know that the Google Map guy hasn't gone into that street, so I can't
That's right.
go in there. But yeah, we'll just make sure it complies with, section, 300, with 303, of our development ordinance. Yes.
And then just to describe at the far southwest corner of the site, we are putting in a security hut, but we're maintaining the existing entrances.
You mentioned on the eastern.
Yeah. So just, yeah, down below, yeah, that's it. And you'll see a little square for the security.
Okay.
That'll be an addition there. But maintaining the gates as they currently are located. Yes, exactly there. That would be the question we did have in that area was there is a setback, as you can see, from the road. I'm not sure what number that is, but on the southern perimeter, there is a set where we put the green shading in there. We are setback. We have a setback, which currently that's just dirt, I think, in that area. We were wanting just to double check on the setback requirement.
The rear yard setback is, minimum 10 feet.
10 feet. So we weren't quite sure why we've got the fence line there. But as we sort of design the stormwater system for this site, it might be that we want to utilize that area.
On-site retention.
Yes. but just knowing that it's 10 feet, we can get that as a clarification. We feel we'll be able to do that.
Okay.
We don't need to move the fence line. Similarly, at the front, sort of northwest quadrant, we've got a large area of landscaping there that again is going to be something that we'll do the calcs on and see what actual area we require for the retention. So it's kind of just a notional idea at the moment. And then just picking up on the landscaping, we are very keen to, wherever possible, introduce landscaping where we've got occupied space. So we are showing areas around buildings with some outside green areas. And we have some landscaping around the parking, but because of the solar PV, we pushed it to the perimeters. Is there any relaxation, if you like, on your landscape planting around parking lots where you have PV introduced?
We do require at the end of the parking rows to have landscape planners.
Right. Is there a particular number of spots? Sometimes it's like
Correct.
eight or
It's
whatever.
one per planter per every 8 stalls.
Right. So what we would ask you is that would it be possible to sort of keep that area but push it to each end, so that you get the ability to have the PV shaded parking in place of that?
We could take a look at that and provide you more concrete feedback
Good.
in the letter.
Thanks.
We could evaluate that.
And one other item was just the situation where there is a neighboring pump water well, I think, and a pump facility shown on the southern kind of mid. Yeah. Is there anything we need to be aware of the constraints on that from your perspective?
Would you be able to give some feedback on that, Javier, or would it go through our Public Works Department in regards to the pump here station?
Let's see.
Reason being, we are quite close with some of the proposed buildings that we want to locate. Obviously, we'll look at separation for fire, but it's just as that if there's any planning setback issues or any other codes that we need to be
No,
aware of.
on ours, it's more setbacks from property line for the structures.
Right.
Not sure if there's any other standards from other departments.
Yeah, no, as I see it here, yeah, it is our water infrastructure. The jog that you show is property line, so there wouldn't be any additional requirements to have any more buffer around that. It'll just be again maintaining right that within your property.
We do show hydrants on the site notionally. I think we've submitted a separate plan that you may have seen already for this area of the site.
Yeah, I'll touch on that stuff when we
Okay.
get to me, yeah.
Okay, well, I won't dwell on that, right? The only other last question I had was about being a permitted use, but with the additional facilities on this site, would there be a requirement for a traffic study at all for this area or not?
Jeff, would you be able to answer that in regards to the proposed uses? Would we require a traffic study for this type of project?
I mean, that's really going to depend on. Okay, so most of the traffic, I assume, would it be considered trucks or passenger vehicles? So trucks, I mean, from an environmental standpoint, we're not gonna look at truck trips. So if that's the primary component, maybe when you do your full submittal, if you can give us an estimation of the number of average daily trips of passenger vehicles, and then just for reference, trucks as well, so we can show a proportion. From planning's perspective, that's, I mean, I would suspect you're not gonna trip any of our levels of service that might that might affect general plan policies. And as far as the function of the street system itself, I mean, I would kind of defer to Javier on that. As to whether the types of vehicle trips are going to have an undue effect on the street, the sections of pavement and that sort of thing.
They shouldn't. We can pull up the as-built for this area. And then we'll comment accordingly, but it shouldn't have an impact.
Yeah, I think we're leaning towards, we don't need a traffic study. But if you can provide us some, like I said, some of that trip
Giving us a warm feeling.
information, that would be helpful.
We'll take it. Thank you. Final question I had was on the West Street frontage. I know that there is about 2 foot band of landscaping along the adjacent site to the north, the solar bank. Not clear on whether we need to do something similar along this area.
Yeah, so the street side setback of which would be the western
Yeah.
property line is minimum 10 feet.
Okay. And landscaping requirement. within
Correct.
that?
Landscaping is a requirement within the street facing setback.
Yeah.
Which, and also the front.
Right.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
similar as the neighbor here on the north side.
But what I understand is we have sidewalks in place, so not seeing that there's any right of way upgrades that we need to do other than what we just mentioned. Right.
Other right of way improvements, Javier? I do see that there's already street lights.
Yeah.
Other than landscaping, do you see any other improvements being triggered?
Is there an estimated valuation of the project at this time?
We don't have that.
No, that's-
information to hand,
no.
Sorry.
Just, I guess I'd answer with, even though the improvements were put in at the, as they were, depending on the valuation and then the general plan update, there have been projects that have been required to demo the sidewalk and then install the new standard, which is a landscape parkway and then an offset sidewalk. Just up the road from you on west, the casino project that's developed was required to do that. So I'll be having to look into that one a little more.
What's worst case scenario then? What is the width of that right away then?
Let me see. We're doing. It'd be a collector road with the median is what the future layout is going to be. I'd have to pull up what that standard is.
When would we be able to get a definitive answer on that? I say that because that's a significant, sort of dimensional issue to the layout that we're currently showing.
Right. The Yeah, based on the rest of what West Street is looking like, it's a collector road with no parking. And a median, and it shows us it'd be 12 feet from curb face, which would be a 6-foot parkway and a 6-foot sidewalk. If it turned out to be needing that improvement.
What we did, the delta on that, with, Oscar, sorry, with the. We're at 6+6, but where would our setback be relevant to that?
From the property line, which is 10 feet.
Okay. So we would still need the extra 2 feet to get that set up. We need to push ours in an extra 2 feet. We'd lose 2 feet, basically, is what we're looking at, which is managed. Yeah. Is that something that is definitive? I think Javier's mentioning it, but do we know for sure that that's required, or when will we know for sure?
It'll be in the comment letter. I'll be discussing with more staff here on to finalize on that determination.
Thank you. This is my comment. Any questions?
They're gonna be an issue if we need to move the driveways. It's,
Based on what we've just heard.
yeah,
Is that, so the driveways that we're showing, would they need to, or would the one closest to the junction get pushed back because you've got a different street type? Beyond the sort of 20 feet setback, if this is a connector road, you know, with the median, does it have a different setback for driveways?
No, it's 20 feet. Usually what affects it is a signalized intersection.
Right.
Our spacing from a corner is just straight out of the MUTCD, which it's 20 feet everywhere. And only if we're on the approach side of a signal, then it increases to 30, which isn't the case here.
Right. Any other questions from last time?
Is there a restriction on the capacity on the field that's required on the site?
Or as far as storage?
Yeah.
Not on our end, just making sure you comply with our storage, outdoor storage, standards, which is under, section 300.10, I think. 300.09 outdoor storage, and again, we'll provide those standards in the letter. But any other, comments as far as what's kind of items you can store, how much, it will come from our fire department. If you want to, we could have Clayton provide his comments in relation to fire code.
So the vast majority of the fire notes are going to be the same that you've already received over the last 2 courses. There will be some clarification and some additions today, based on what I was provided as far as the layouts. So the fire hydrant layouts, and people struggle with understanding the term that we utilize. And so the maximum distance is 300 feet between hydrants. And so we utilize a term called as the hose lays. So given this example, and this is not really to the scale or anything, but just if we were to, for example, measure from this fire hydrant, we're going to go as the hose lays and measure to this fire hydrant. The maximum distance can be 300 feet. Okay. And so there has to be within 300 feet of the hydrants as we develop the site. Now, it looks like you're giving us plenty of room to move around. You know, I'm sure because of the nature of what you're doing, the trucks are as big as ours or bigger. So I'm not too concerned with us being able to get in and get around and that kind of stuff. We've got plenty of access points to come in for secondary access and everything else. And so, but the one thing that is going to be key is the fire hydrant layout. As far as the buildings requiring sprinklering, I can tell you right now, the future garage will be for sure. However, these others, I will need to know the type of construction and actual square footages and things of that nature. Essentially, currently, we have adopted the 2022 California Fire Code. We do have some local amendments. They're not very large. They have to do with secondary access and hydrant spacing and things like that, but those are available in the municipal code in chapter 12, 12-1. So you'll be able to find those. There's, you know, a handful of them. But essentially, as far as like the fuel and stuff like that, we're basically going to require you to just comply with the fire code on my end, right? So anything that you propose, make sure that it's vetted through the fire code or the NFPA standard that's included in the fire code. And then again, the hydrant layout. There wasn't really much that stood out to me. I would like a list, if you can provide it, of the hazmat materials you're proposing and an approximation of the quantities. So what exactly it is that you're keeping there and how much, that will help us determine, you know, access points. We talked about in the past, and we're working on getting NOx access over there, getting all of that stuff worked out. We're going to do it, and we're going to set it up so it's not only for the police, but the fire, you know, fire and police will have access to the site, because this is more than just us responding for a fire. I believe this is, you know, probably a target site for individuals who may want to disrupt, you know, service. So, so we'll want our police department to have access as well. But ultimately, you know, what I'm looking at as far as the proposal looks good. We have good, you know, circulation through there, just making sure that the minimum, including in the employee parking area, gives us a minimum of 20-foot drive paths. And then any building that exceeds 30 feet at the eve is going to require 26-foot access roads around it. And we'll need 26-foot access roads in for the ladder truck. Anywhere that a fire hydrant is placed on the road as well, if you go to Appendix D of the fire code, you'll find that that section of the 20-foot fire lane where the fire hydrant is actually needs to be widened to 26 feet. And there's a distance on either side of the hydrant to give us room to pull in, deploy hoses, that kind of stuff. So you'll kind of see that stuff. So there may be some cutouts in some of these that are kind of in there if they're not already 26 feet or a minimum of 26 feet wide. But again, based on the equipment that you have in there, I would assume that they're going to be pretty wide already and meet all of that. So if the buildings are required to be sprinklered, the fire department connection, if the site permits, we prefer the fire department connection to be at least 40 feet away from the building. And the FDC has to be within 50 feet of a functioning hydrant. And a lot of that stuff will get taken care of upon, you know, your submission for building permits and stuff like that. Site plan review and everything else. So, and I'm not sure if you're going to phase this or if you want to just come in and just do a large project. So if you decide that you want to go phases, we'll kind of need to talk about laying out, getting infrastructure and stuff like that. Obviously the water system has to be looped. We've been discussing that for quite some time, where it has a minimum of 2 points of connection. So it's not a flag or isolated on the water system. Are there any specific questions?
Nothing significant for me. I just a sort of interesting question about where we have solar shading here. If we had a 26-foot wide clearance between those two structures, is there a height limit
13
to the underside?
13.
So even if it was wider than,
Even yeah, we basically need to be able to, in the event that we have to move equipment around, we don't want to take a chance running into it. So we require a minimum 13.6. We've done it with the schools. We've done it with other restaurants, other grocery stores that are putting that in. We're just, that is our standard 13.6 minimum clearance. You guys are going to want it too. You know, I mean, replacing the solar canopy and one of those vehicles, you know, even though you're gonna have a repair garage, nobody wants to do that, so.
Good, I'm good. Any other questions from us?
Thank you, Clayton. Any other comments, from engineering, Javier?
But probably the only other one is the site runoff. There'd be some calculations to comply with the state's MS4 requirements, which is just maintaining a certain amount of runoff on site through landscape swales, pervious, concrete, similar things like that. And besides the items we already talked about, which is a driveway spacing from the corner, and then I'll provide more direction on the potential improvements on west.
Thank you, Javier. As far as comments from field services, they'll bring up the trash enclosures, how many, where. They'll provide those comments in the letter that will be mailed out. Any comments from building? No. Something comply with latest building code. Sounds good.
The final question I had, which I don't know if it's a question or not, is just that we have other projects where there is an airport nearby.
Uh-huh.
And so we do have an airport nearby us here. You mentioned the 35-foot height limit for building structures. Are there any other restrictions that
There could be, it's in our overlay, the airport environment overlay. But I believe that this area is far out of that area that the height of a 35-foot won't be an issue.
Right. There was no other requirements you had a look. For us in terms of views.
At this time, no. Of course, we'll give you more concrete information in the letter.
Thank you.
About radio towers or antenna towers if we do.
That's regarding height and any sort of interference issue.
Yeah, correct. We'll still comply with the same height limitations of 35 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Did the site require any environmental study report?
Jeff, will you be able to answer that? As far as a preliminary environmental review of the proposed use of the site?
If the use is permitted by right, normally we wouldn't have any real CEQA review. It's presumed to be consistent with the general planning IR.
Correct.
And unless we, you know, like when you provide the traffic numbers, for example, if we find out that there are any kind of uncharacteristic effects that might occur from this project, then we would take another look at that. But as is, it would not be subject to any other review.
Thank you, Jeff. With that, is there any other questions for staff from the applicant?
No, I mean, you've answered the main one was about the usage. That was really the thrust of why we wanted to come in and talk to you about it. But all the other comments are very useful too.
Nice.
So we appreciate those.
Nice, thank you. And as stated previously, we'll gather the comments from each department. We'll provide them in a letter. We'll get that to your team in about 2 weeks time frame. If you have any questions between then and now, feel free to reach out to staff.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and end today's project review committee meeting at 2:15 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.